Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. Some days there's very good news, and other days, like today, it's not so much good news, but you want to watch and absorb what's happening because you want to know what's going on. If I only show you good news, I'm a propagandist. Ukraine's going to win. Ukraine did this. Ukraine did that. And I can't do that today because it's not that kind of day. But you want to watch this anyway because you want to be aware. Um, when you are trying to lose weight, some days the scale's higher than you would hope it would be. Maybe you didn't exercise or you ate a little bit too much or the food just hasn't processed through your system. So in those days, you have to remind yourself to look at the trend, not just the day. And that's today is one of those kind of days. Okay, there's 1,120 Russians off the battlefield. The battlefield is still hot. In fact, I'll show you the battlefield maps just so you can get a sense of what's going on in just a moment. But before that, let's look at just what the Russians are doing. Okay, at least 3 people killed and 3 injured after a Russian missile strike in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa early on Wednesday. At least 1 man was killed and 9 injured in the northeastern city of Kharkiv after Russians struck a railway line with a guided bomb, damaging nearby residential buildings. Again, war crimes. 1 woman was killed and 3 people injured in Ukrainian shelling along the border of Russia's Kerch region. Okay, so the hits just keep coming. Russia keeps doing what Russia keeps doing. Again, this is the Odessa overnight. This is the morning of May 1st. Russian airstrikes targeting civilian infrastructure in Kharkiv and the region. State emergency services reported 2 people killed. Fire broke out. Here's another view of that same fire that had broken out. What's the military object here? There is none, and that's just the way that the Russians do this. And they do it so much that just like, well, that's just how Russia does it, but it's still a war crime. Okay, invaders stopped their offensive in Avdiivka area and resume offensive on Chasiv Yar, according to the ISW. Now, this is important because it's signaling a shift in their strategy. 1 day's worth of reporting is not sufficient to establish a pattern, but it may suggest that Russian forces are somewhat slowing down the rate of attacks around Avdiivka while recommitting to offensive pushes around Chasiv Yar. The ISW recently forecasted it would. Okay, let's look at Avdiivka. This was 2 weeks ago around, here's Avdiivka, and they're going this way, and this is 2 weeks ago, and here's today. They're making some progress. It's undeniable. You can't well, no, they're not really making progress. It's not a great deal. I mean, if you look at the kilometers, but they're still making progress. All right, back to this. Chasiv Yar is operationally significant objective as it would provide Russian forces with a staging ground to launch offensive operations against multiple other cities. So where is Chasiv Yar and what's going on here? Chasiv Yar is here, and this is 2 weeks ago, and this is today. So they really are. And it's not that the Russians are even in it, but they're destroying the city. They're obliterating it with artillery at this time. Now, the Russians also claim to have hit a military headquarters. This is an RT. So you take RT with a grain of salt, and then you try to confirm things. Russia's carried out a strike on Ukrainian military headquarters commanding troops in the southern sector on the front, the Defense Ministry in Moscow has announced. In a statement on Wednesday, the ministry said that the military installation, Ukrainian troops, and hardware were hit by combined air, missile, and artillery strikes. Can you confirm that? Well, it seems that the Guardian is confirming that this is what happened, and you just want to make sure that you're seeing reality as reality is. Russian military has attacked the command headquarters of the Ukrainian Army's southern grouping, which is based on the port of Odessa. Russia's defense ministry has said, according to Reuters, the headquarters of the operational command of the southern grouping of Ukraine was struck by operational and tactical aviation, missile forces, and artillery, the ministry said. Okay, so that's happened. Now, what's going on? Why the big push with Chasiv Yar and these attacks? Why is this amping up now? Well, Kremlin is bragging about Western arms captured from Ukraine at a Moscow show. Remember, May 7th, today is May 1st. May 7th, Putin is re-sworn in. May 9th is the big parade day. It's usually the March of the Immortal Regiment, which was canceled. But, the day that they parade all their tanks through town, but they don't have a whole lot to do, missiles and things along those lines, trying to look tough. Okay, so that's coming up, and that would explain, I think, why they want to achieve Chasiv Yar before that. And this isn't my thought independently. This is coming from ISW and other sources as well. Okay. Uh, at the same time, Russia is doing all these things. Ukraine is hitting back. Here's a Russian oil refinery in Ryazan was under attack tonight. This is the second time when drones target objects in the territory of the oil refinery. Thread about previous strikes attached. Ryazan oil refinery is 470 kilometers from the front line. And here's another view of it. And here's yet another view of it. The photo claimed the Ryazan oil factory is the Ryazan oil factory. Presumably the photo was made from this location. If so, that is burning footage. And geolocation is proof that this is the Ryazan oil factory. So, and then you find that not only I don't just find it in Twitter. I also confirm with real news. Here's DW. Drone reportedly hits Russian oil factory. But there's more to the story here. And Kyiv Post has the same kind of things. Russia low on fuel after Ukrainian strikes on oil factories. Now this is interesting because now it's telling us a little bit more about it than what we're talking about before. It's actually talking about what's been the consequence over time of their strikes. So Ukrainian drone strikes were successful in putting pressure on Russia's fuel supplies, causing gasoline and diesel prices to surge for Russian consumers, Politico reported on April 29th. The cost of diesel went up almost 10% in the past week, while gasoline prices hit a 6-month high, going up by more than 20% when compared to the start of the year. So that's something. It is actually having an effect, as opposed to hitting an apartment building and some automobile somewhere, as you saw in the previous tweets. Russia sold just over 712,000 metric tons of diesel and gasoline last week, compared with 844 metric tons during the same period last year. So it's having an effect, and as it continues, it accumulates and snowballs. So what Ukraine's trying to do is actually the right strategy, I think, but it's only a little bit at a time, Okay. Now, next, this is an interesting story. It's not really Ukraine striking back or anything, but the first time in history, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine has created a digital person for the use of artificial intelligence technologies. Representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Consular Affairs, Victoria Shi. This is actually an AI-generated, personality that is going to be proclaiming Ministry of Foreign Affairs issues. Now, I hope it's managed well, because if it's not, things could go very wrong very quickly, because this is an important thing. My name first symbolizes the main goal, victory of Ukraine. My last name is the artificial intelligence that created me. So again, the Victoria Shi. Okay. I'm not sure how much I like this. I get what they're trying to do. It's a force multiplier that they can put this into something like that and, write the script and put it out. I hope it's writing the script, or they're managing writing the script. I've seen too many things go wrong with AI. I failed a lot of students this semester for using AI, and things can go wrong. For example, AI art. What happens when you tell AI image to generate a generator to recreate the scene of Jesus flipping over the tables, like flipping over the tables in the temple? Well, if you're biblically literate, you recognize he wasn't doing this. He wasn't, doing a backflip. He was actually throwing over the tables of the money changers who were doing this, desecrating the temple. But okay, so be careful with AI. But I appreciate their ingenuity in trying different things. Okay, Poland requests NATO nuclear weapon placement amid Russia's nuclear threats. This is from Euromaidan Press. And so, again, it's because Belarus wants to station Russian nukes in Belarus. Okay, well, Poland wants to station NATO nukes on their border as well. And so it's a tit-for-tat kind of thing, and this kind of thing tends to escalate. All right, last couple of things. So I saw this and I thought this is useful for us to understand. Veterans Group hits the airwaves to thank Johnson on Ukraine. And people would ask me yesterday, after I was talking about something with Marjorie Taylor Greene, stop talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why are you talking about her? They already passed the bill. I'm not saying this in a mean way, but it's short-sighted to say that. You have to pay attention to what's going on in U.S. politics in regard to the key players, especially because it's not over. Like, we're foolish to think that that's the last bill and U.S. support won't matter moving forward. Yes, you don't want to just dwell on Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's just like nails on a chalkboard. I understand that, but here, Veterans Group hits the airwaves to thank Johnson for Ukraine. I think this is exactly the right thing to do. On Veterans on Duty, a nonprofit advocacy organization is preparing a six-figure television, radio, and digital advertising campaign that will start on Wednesday to thank Speaker Johnson and other Republicans for supporting emergency spending on foreign aid. That's right. They're going to need more in the future. They want to keep a good relationship. They want to keep that message front and center. As for Marjorie Taylor Greene, her bid to topple Johnson veers close to backfiring because the Democrats came out yesterday and said, we're not going to support that. We're going to nix that before it can even get anywhere. So, I mean, she'll use it as a PR stunt, but again, she is an important player because she's the most ferociously against, well, one of the most, maybe within the top five, certainly, ferociously against supporting Ukraine. Okay, in other news, the Ministry of Defense from the UK has indicated that they're going from £200 million to £325 million to add another 10,000 new drones to Ukraine, so that's awesome. Norway is increasing its aid to Ukraine by 7 billion Norwegian crowns, that's $633 million. To add to that as well. NATO, I saw this. So Jens Stoltenberg was in Ukraine just a couple days ago, and Che Bowles, he's an RT commentator, said, NATO chief arrived in Kyiv promising more weapons and more war, but he conveniently forgot to mention that 500,000 Ukrainians have been killed and losing his war. Well, he forgot to mention it because 500,000 Ukrainians have not been killed during this war. Almost 500,000 Russians have been casualties in this war, but 500,000 Ukrainians is a propaganda talking point that's just not true. Okay, so I didn't want to let that pass. And by the way, while we're at this, some of you would say, don't give him a platform, Che Bowles. No, you want to expose what they're doing and inoculate by showing what is wrong. So, for example, yesterday I put this out. Tucker interviewed Alexander Dugin, giving him an unchallenged platform to spread his ideas to millions of viewers. Do you want me to review this? Some of you said yes, and I said if I have a supermajority, I'll do it. I don't have a supermajority here, so I'm not going to do it. But I did watch it, and I'll just give you the 1-minute summary. He said essentially that what I was going to say here first was that some of you say, don't give him a platform, don't show it, no, you need to expose what it is and show why it's wrong. So Dugin said, essentially, individualism is the problem because individualism then leads to all the problems with the West, and he was talking about woke kind of stuff, to an audience that doesn't largely know better, that the alternative that Dugin is propagating is Putin-like authoritarianism. Do you really want that over freedom and individuality? Is an individualism as the core of Western society? You would replace that with what? With what Russia does? So you actually do want to expose that, but I'm not going to do a whole review here because the people have spoken and I'm okay with that. I was pretty livid after watching that and was kind of like I had to calm myself down before I could sleep after watching Dugin. Okay, last little bit. Ukrainian boy defeats Russian chess star to win world championship. It's not a big thing, but a win's a win, and good on him. Now, the interesting thing about this story is he wasn't going to go. He was getting pressure not to go, but he decided to do this, and if he didn't do it, the Russian would have taken first place. Good on him. All right, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you to my patrons. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.